Hello everyone! I'm so excited to be going over our printmaking card project today. My name is Amy. I'm coming to you from Sunshine Craft Co. and we are on Facebook Live, so I'm going to wait a second to see if we can get a few people who wanted to attend on the stream, and then we're going to get started with our material pack and our project demonstration. I will give you a little peek at the printmaking cards we're making. I have these samples here. I made a stamp of this heart, and I put it on. We've got these really nice single cards, and look, I put a little note to my grandma on this one. And then I have a few envelopes here where I can take that note and we can mail it. So I mentioned we're doing printmaking cards and we have a material pack available. So first I wanted to go over the material pack and anything extra you might also want to assemble and have with you while we do this project, because we are going to be working with paint. So if you want to protect your surface, make sure you have a water cup, some paper towels. I definitely recommend that. Now, when we gave you your little material pack, you have a pencil, and then you have the cards and the envelopes. So here's the blank cards and here are the envelopes. And then you'll find you have all of these sheets of foam. So this is what we are actually going to be using to make our stamps. We can draw right on these sheets of foam, and wherever we draw will stay this white, and wherever we don't draw is going to be our paint color. And these we have just these sheets because they're really easy to work with. They're a 4x6 size. And if you are doing this at home and you don't have our material pack, if you sanitize it really well, you can use styrofoam sheets that would come with like chicken or meat in the deli case, and that would work the same way as well. Now, I'm coming from Arizona, so I'm going to be doing a desert theme for my sample today. I also have a top-down camera that I'm going to switch over to, and I'm going to work on that and talk through the project using that view, since it's easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. And we are going to get started. Oh, I mentioned if you are joining with the material pack, some other things you'll want to have is you'll want to have scrap paper, because we want to just kind of sketch out some ideas. You want to have paper towels, paper plate if you want to use it to put your paint on, and then a water cup just to make sure that your brush gets in there after you're done working. And then just having a surface area that's ready for painting. Okay, we're going to switch over to this top-down view and do this fun project. So you can see my sample right here. Now, you might be able to tell this is the stamp that I made for my sample, and it is a reverse image. So see, I stamped down like this, and you peel it away, and it's going to be opposite. So that's something to keep in mind when you are creating your design. You can see I kind of have the design that I'm going to work on sketched out, and I usually, for your first couple, recommend no words because of that reversed nature of the stamp. So I'm going to be doing kind of this prickly pear cactus design, and I am going to grab one of my foam sheets to start sketching on. So I have my pencil, and I kind of like to have a duller pencil. I think it draws on the styrofoam a lot better. So this one I've sketched a lot with, and it has less of a pointy tip. And I'm going to, let's see, where everyone can see well. I'm just gonna start right up here, and I'm gonna be drawing my design. So we wanna make a little paddle. And I'm going to make a bigger one up here. And then another little guy down here. Now when you have this done, you can kind of go back over and you can make these lines a little more indented or even a little thicker if you want to come in and add shape. Because everywhere we draw is going to be white, and we want to make sure that it's pressed down enough so that when we brush paint on top, the paint isn't going to get down into our design. So we just want to make sure that everything's pressed down really well. Okay, and then I'm just going to do a little buddy right next to it. And maybe a little bit coming out here. And again, I'm going to go over this, kind of repressing down all those lines, making sure that it's deep enough that the paint isn't going to get down into it. And then I'm just going to go back and add a few little prickles because we're working with a cactus. Kind of pressing hard to make sure, again, all of those get indented. I love this way of printmaking because I included 5 of these foam sheets, so you can really play around with a lot of different design ideas and test out a lot of fun stuff pretty quickly without having to sit there. If you've seen printmaking before, it might carve with a knife on a block. I also like this because it doesn't feel as dangerous. You know, I'm just working with my pencil on my foam sheet, and I don't have to be nervous about anything. So once I have my little design here, I'm going to take my scissors and kind of cut out a shape around it. I'm going to try to do kind of an organic shape. Maybe give it a little wavy ground to sit my cactus on. And come up and around. Now we're thinking that all of the foam that we haven't colored on is gonna be a color. We're gonna put our paint on this. So this can be our shape that's gonna go onto our card. I'm gonna cut this down a little bit more. And that's looking pretty good. So I have my stamp ready to go. And I have my card. Now, when I get ready to print, I don't want to necessarily print straight onto my card first. I'm actually going to grab some scrap paper and I'm going to print on there first because I just want to see what my stamp looks like before I print onto my card. So I've got my scrap paper ready to go, and I have my stamp right here. I'm actually going to get another scrap paper. Maybe we'll put it on the scrap paper to put our paint on. And I have some black paint left over from another project that I was just going to use. Pour that onto my brush. And with the brush here, so here in Arizona, our paint is gonna dry kind of fast. So we wanna think about, we want a nice even coat. We don't want it too thick, but we want it to be enough that it's gonna not dry out right away. So I have my paint loaded on my brush and I'm gonna try to just gently go across the surface of my foam stamp. So this is the part where you might have paper towels, you might get a little on your fingers, that's totally fine. We're just gonna carefully try to brush over. We'll see how this goes. I might have gotten a little bit of paint down in my design, but that's what, when we print, we'll see what ends up happening. So I have my stamp loaded up with my paint, and I'm gonna flip that. I'm gonna test it on my scrap piece of paper first. Now, when we flip our stamp, we wanna make sure that once we flip and set it down, that we don't move it. We want to pick a spot, we wanna set it down, and not wiggle it. But we do wanna press down. So we can press down with our fingers, trying to get all the edges. And then I'm gonna come in and peel it away. Okay, so you can see we've got a little bit of outline of our cactus. And what I'm gonna do is we've got those paper towels, but I also have these Q-tips. So I'm gonna try to come in and clean out all of those areas that we wanted to stay white, because I got a little overexcited with all my paint. And I wanna make sure that the paint stays out of those areas. And I think what I did is I just had too much paint on my brush when I went to put it on. So we're just gonna give that a try again. And again, that's why we're working with our practice paper before we put it on our cards. So I'm gonna try to load this paint onto my stamp again. And I'm really gonna make sure that I don't have a lot on my brush and that I'm just gently brushing across the top surface of my stamp. And what's great about these stamps too is you can reuse them, just like we're doing here. And I'm doing a lot lighter coat of paint this time. I just rotated it so I could get the bottom of my stamp. We're gonna give this one a try. So I'm gonna flip it, and when I go to stamp on my scrap paper, I'm gonna place it down, and then I don't wanna wiggle it, but I wanna press straight down and press really firmly around all the edges. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Oh, cool. You can see we've got the shape of our cactus, and I think I'm going to try a nice midpoint between too much paint and not enough paint, and we're just gonna go straight and try it on our card the next time. Another thing we could do too is we could come back in if you're testing your stamp and you're like, oh, feel like I need to add to an area or work on an area. You could come back in with your pencil and you could try to widen up some of the areas that you might not be seeing. So I could come in here and just kind of widen up some of these lines. So that we really get them a good print. Okay. Now, based on what I've learned, I'm gonna try for that happy medium. So I'm gonna load up the paint on my brush. I'm gonna be really careful while I go across, just to stay right on the surface. I'm gonna rotate it. And then I'm gonna go in with a second light coat just to make sure that we have a good amount of paint with it being gently on the top. Okay. Now I'm gonna try to line this up on my card, kind of in the top middle. And then once I set it down, I'm not gonna wiggle it, but I'm gonna go around and I'm gonna press down on all the edges. Careful not to get any of my paint on the actual paint on my fingers on the card. I wanna press right on top of the stamp. And then we'll see what this looks like. Awesome. We've got our two prickly pear cactus. I don't know if you can tell, but we've got kind of that reverse opposite happening. So we've got one of our cards done. Now, like I said, you have so many supplies to play around with making lots of different stamps. You can create borders, you can create like a little heart like I did, you can create a family portrait, some flowers. You can cut out different shapes, add a few different prints to your cards, but the foundations are there. You're going to be drawing your design, cutting out your stamp, doing that light coat of paint on it, and pressing it gently onto your surface without wiggling it. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. And I'm gonna probably work on adding maybe a border to my card, printing a few more, writing notes to my loved ones, and popping them in the mail. Now, I mentioned this material pack. I think the link to it is in our video description, and you can look at that, and you can look at material packs for some of our other Facebook Live demonstrations that we've done, and check out for those, work on your crafty projects at home. And we are doing these project demonstrations every other week. So the next 2 sessions, we won't have material packs for, but we'll be releasing the materials you'll need for those projects. So upcoming, we have a painted plant pot project, which is coming up in 2 weeks. And following that, we're gonna be doing Ojos de Dios weavings. So those are the 2 projects coming up. I would love to see you back for those. Have a great day, everyone.